This is Alex, and welcome to Barely Braided, where we're taking a deep, deep dive into foster care, adoption, and all things parenting, even the sticky stuff. So, since this is the very first episode, I thought it would only be appropriate for us to tell our story and to explain how we got where we are. We are currently foster parents, and we are soon to be adoptive parents. That's happening in just a couple weeks, and I'm really, really excited. And with all of that being said, I have a guest. My first guest, my only guest. It is Joel. Say hi, Joel.
Hi.
What are you thinking?
I don't know.
Have you ever been on a podcast before?
No, I've been on a few radio shows, and I've been interviewed on TV a couple times, years ago, but
I haven't been on a podcast either until yesterday.
Perfect.
What were you interviewed on TV about?
Football and track.
Did they, assess your performance vocally?
No.
What did they talk about?
Well, I remember the one in high school when I won the state championship in the shot put. They interviewed me for the local news.
How heavy is a shot put?
It was 12 pounds. 12 pounds or 16? I can't remember which one we did in high school. I think it was a 12 pound, and I think they throw a 16 in college. But I don't remember off the top of my head.
And how far did you throw it?
My best was 59, 10 and 3/4. That's still the school record.
Still?
Still. My sister has the women's, too.
Maisie's wagging her tail, and you can hear it banging against the wall. Okay, I'm sorry. You said your sister has the record as well?
Mm-hmm.
How far is hers?
35-something.
Wow.
But they threw an 8-pound.
Okay.
Women throw a smaller one yet.
Hometown heroes. Do you have your picture on the wall?
I do.
You do? Do you ever go back and look at it?
I haven't been back in that school for, I bet it's been 15 years.
Really?
Yeah, probably.
And how many years have you been out of high school?
21? 20 and a half.
Wow. All right. Well, we're kind of old, but it's fine.
Yeah, old. And you're 7 years younger than me.
Okay, so you're old.
So I'm old, and this is my first go-around with being a parent, a dad.
I know. It's weird, isn't it?
I'll be 40 this year.
Yeah, but don't you feel like you have so much more patience now than you did when you were 17?
I don't know, but I don't have patience now, so I'm hard to say what I would have had then.
I think I'm just more tired now than I was when I was younger.
I'm more agitated.
Okay. Well, you shouldn't be agitated right now. What are you drinking?
That's Jack Daniels on the rocks.
Oh. All right. Well, cool. So maybe we should begin by talking about how we met and how we decided to start taking foster parent classes and how that all came about. Maybe I'll just ask you questions. How does that sound?
Sure.
Okay. Do you remember how we met?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
I remember driving to the listing.
What were your first thoughts when you saw me?
I thought that you were hot, but I was also warned going into it that you had a boyfriend.
Oh, goodness. Did you have a girlfriend at the time?
No. I'd been on a few Tinder dates, but that was about it.
Somebody told me, was it you that told me that they went on a Tinder date for the first time, and when they walked in, they saw the person who they were supposed to be on a date with, but the person didn't look anything like their picture, and so they turned and walked out?
No, it wasn't me.
Somebody told me that.
I did go on a date with a girl that looked nothing like her. And I'm not being rude. I would imagine, if I was to guess, all of her pictures showed her running in marathons and stuff, and she had to have been pushing 200 pounds.
Well, that's all right. I mean,
well, I didn't say she was bad looking or anything. It's just she didn't look like anything that her picture said. Anyway, back to us meeting.
Did you see Dr. Phil last night? Okay, so we met because you were in the market for a new house and your realtor that you were working with was going out of town.
No, my realtor skirted out of town, and when I found listings that I needed to see when my parents were here, I called her and tried to set up a time where we could go. And she's like, oh, Ray and I are in Memphis at a meeting, and we won't be back for 4 days.
Okay, and the market here moves so quickly, so when there's a house available in your price range, you need to see it immediately.
Yeah, at that time, houses weren't staying on the market for 24 hours.
Yeah, they were moving quick for sure. They still are, but at that point, they were going under contract so quickly. So I had just gotten my real estate license. I had never sold a house. I had not even shown a house at that point. She worked in my office, and so she asked me if I could take you to see the houses. And that's how we met for the very first time.
Yeah.
Also, I want to go ahead and say that before I went, I was like not single. I had a boyfriend, but I was like, a female going to a place that I'd never been, going to meet somebody who I'd never met, a complete stranger. And so I had given the address of where we were going to my friend Nikki. And so she knew where I was going. I think I gave her your first and last name. And so if anything were to happen, if I were to turn up dead or murdered or missing.
That's smart.
Yeah, she would kind of know where to at least begin looking. We'll come back to that part of the story later, which I know is your favorite part of the story. But your parents joined us and your dog.
After the first place, yeah.
Yeah, we saw a couple houses.
My parents were in town, and my apartment had flooded, and so I was couch surfing, and my parents were in town for a week, so I was staying with them in a hotel. So I picked them up on the way.
And your dog.
And the dog, yeah.
Yeah. Little Bristol is a 5-pound Chihuahua Min Pin mix, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you had her with you, which was pretty cute. I feel like if every part of our story takes as long as the first part did, we will be here for 3 hours. Well, fast forward to after we saw the houses and I survived the meeting. I didn't get murdered. So after that, I went to go hang out with my friend Nikki, who was recently divorced at the time. And one of my favorite hobbies was to get on her cell phone and scroll through her Tinder and try to match her with people. And as I'm scrolling through her Tinder, none other than Joel's picture pops up. And I was like, Nikki, oh my goodness, this is the guy I just met. This is the guy I just showed houses to. I was like, he has a really nice family. He's a good looking dude. He's buying his own house. Swipe right. And I swiped right. And she wasn't so much interested, which in retrospect is probably a really good thing, because if you two had ever dated, you probably would have killed one another simultaneously, like a standoff. She was actually really, really, really sweet. We had been really overwhelmed with babies in the last week or two, and I was telling her about it because she has 2 kids, and she was so nice. She was like, if you ever want to bring them over, just bring them over to my house. I'll watch them all night long. I'll take care of them all day, whatever you need. And so that was super nice of her to offer that.
So rewind, regroup,
focus.
Yeah.
All right.
So a couple months goes by, and we didn't communicate because I thought you were cute, but you weren't on the market. So
neither were those houses.
Yeah. Well, I wanted that one with the saltwater pool, by the way.
Yeah, we saw a house with a pool. It was very nice. Ooh, we can hear the dogs barking in the background. It's Bristol. Okay, so fast forward just a few months. I had posted on Facebook that I dropped my cell phone in the river.
Wait a minute. Are you going to not talk about sending me a Facebook Messenger asking me how to get started running? Because you quote unquote wanted to start running?
No, I think we should skip past that part. In all fairness, I really would have liked to have started running. Running is just not in my psyche.
It wasn't in mine either.
I think there has to be something deep down inside of you that is okay with running in order for one to begin and stick with running. I think some people have it and some people don't, because you do and I don't. No matter how hard I try, I will never be a runner. So anyways, after those running Facebook messages, I posted on my Facebook page that I had dropped my cell phone in the river, and which was true, and I needed to borrow somebody's Verizon cell phone for a few days until I could get to the store and get a new phone and get it all figured out. And Joel graciously agreed. He said he had one laying around that he would let me borrow, which was very sweet of him. And so...
It was an iPhone 4.
Yeah. Baller status. So we met up at Ellis for lunch. We had lunch, and then I got your cell phone and I used it. And I kind of feel like we hung out pretty much continuously ever after that.
You went to Sturgis for a week, and then after that we were kind of inseparable.
Yep. Inseparable.
Aw.
Besties.
That's how we met.
That's how we met. The story goes on. We began dating. Our first kiss was in a parking garage on 2nd Avenue.
After the Robert Earl Keen concert.
Yeah. And we ended up moving in together.
After about a year and a half?
Yeah, it was probably a little over a year.
We lived about 30 minutes apart, so it was kind of a hike.
Yeah, it was an inconvenience before we moved in together, but moving in together, it was the right decision. We bought a house that I absolutely loved. We don't live there anymore, but the house that we bought was in Hermitage, Tennessee, which is a suburb of Nashville. And at the time, it was the most beautiful house I could have ever imagined living in. I was so proud of that house. I loved it. I still love it. About that time, my brother was a foster parent, my brother and his wife. And they had a couple of foster kids come through their home, one of which they really connected with. And I think they really had hoped to adopt her, and it didn't end up working out. So anyways, one day Joel and I were at work, and occasionally we'll G-chat with each other. And I chatted with him asking if he had any interest in taking the foster parent training classes.
No, you asked me if I would ever consider fostering. And I said, yeah, knowing my history, yeah.
Well, okay, so you say knowing your history. Do we need to take a little
Sidebar?
shallow dive into that?
We could save it for another time.
Okay. Well, to get to the point, his history is fertility issues.
Yeah.
That's his history, our history, and so that's just kind of a part of our story. And knowing that, he was open to becoming a foster parent at some point. Mm-hmm. Little did he know that...
Little did I know that you signed us up that day.
Yeah, about 5 minutes later, we were signed up for the training classes.
I was less than impressed.
No, you were excited. We started going to classes in, June, July, summertime?
I think it was June because we ended in August. We ended, the week of my birthday, I remember.
Yeah, that's right. So we would go every Tuesday night after work from 5:30 to 9:30, something like that.
Yeah, it was 5:30 to 9, usually.
And what I remember about foster parent classes...
Smoothie King.
Yes. We would always stop at Smoothie King on the way and get Angel Food smoothies.
And apple chips.
And, a little bag of apple chips.
Shout out Seneca apple chips.
Right. Those things are hard to find, too. And if you do find them, they're super expensive.
They're so tasty.
They're so good. So what did you think about the foster parent training classes?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's some stuff that was definitely beneficial, but a lot of it I felt like was common sense. Unfortunately, in the foster care world, I feel like nothing can really prepare you for real life and what's going to happen when... Because there's so many different scenarios. Even in the 5 or so kids that we've had, each case has been so different.
Are there things that you feel we should have been taught in foster parent training classes that we weren't?
I mean, there's a lot, but I think the biggest advice I could give a foster parent, based on things that we did or, in this case, didn't learn, is that they're going to tell you a lot of different things. The best rule of thumb is don't rely on your support workers. You have to be prepared to do nearly everything on your own. I
would agree with that. Yeah, in the classes, they made it sound like your support workers in the state would help you through everything.
And your support worker will go to pick them up from daycare and take them to appointments and take them to visits and do that. No.
Yeah, in our experience, that hasn't happened. We hear time and time and time again, they're underpaid and they're overworked. Their caseloads are huge. And I mean, maybe they are. I don't know.
I'm sure they are, but we hear it like a broken record. We just got a new foster fairly recently, and we met their worker for the first time almost a month into it. That was just like 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
And that was one of the first things that he said was that, oh, I have so-and-so's caseload, and, you know, I was still in training, and I got my caseload, and I wasn't supposed to have a caseload, and
yeah.
It's just like, we already know that they work hard, they do a special job, you know, but it seems like they're all conditioned to having to explain how they're overworked.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
I don't know.
Many people in many different careers can claim to be overworked and underpaid. I think I'm overworked and underpaid. I kind of think we all...
School teachers, cops, firefighters, EMTs.
Yeah.
You know, our society, different than, like, Europeans. Americans work a lot more than they do in Europe.
Yeah.
Like, they get 6 weeks of paid vacation, like, the first day. Like,
wow. Going back to the foster parent training classes, there is one thing that I went in really wanting to know and having questions about that didn't end up becoming addressed. And this is something that's important to us because we both work full time, is daycare. I was just wondering how daycare worked, because I know infant and younger child daycare is so hard to come by. Open slots are so hard to come by. And so I was questioning how they were able to assist us in getting children into daycare for foster parents who work full time.
And the short story is what? They don't help you.
The short story is, yeah, they don't help you. The state will pay for approved daycares. However, finding a state-approved daycare with an infant opening, in our case, because we have an infant right now, is nearly impossible.
And that will accept the vouchers.
Right.
So there's a lot of different layers.
You gotta peel the onion back.
There's a lot of different facets that they have to cover.
So we completed foster parent training classes in August. What else happened in August of that year? Right around your birthday time. I'll give you a hint. It was a very important day.
I have no idea.
Do you really not know?
No.
You proposed to me.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was... Yeah, that was like the day before my birthday, I think.
Yeah. So we got engaged.
Here I'm thinking, it was our wedding, but that was the following year, and I was like, she's got our wedding confused. But no, yeah, totally.
Yep, you put a ring on it. And that's another question I do hear quite often is, can you become a foster parent if you're not married, or if you're single, or if you're in a same-sex relationship? And at least here, the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
I remember all of those scenarios.
I remember that girl that sat behind us in foster care classes, in PATH class, that was just turned 19. She was still in college.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a sibling that she wanted to take on a full-blown foster.
Yeah.
Which was crazy to me.
Yeah, that definitely takes a lot of courage, especially for someone so young. So after the classes, we did the home study. What do you remember about the home study?
I remember that the PATH people, the instructors made it sound like it was very intrusive, and it was very, they opened every drawer in your house, and I didn't think, there's a lot of documents you have to get and all that stuff, but I didn't think that it was really all that bad.
I agree.
But yet our friends that we took the PATH class with had an opposite experience of what we had. They're in another county. Our lady didn't open up hardly any drawers. I don't think she opened up any drawers. She asked about the guns and stuff like that, and we showed them that they were double locked. But I remember our friends were really, really highly scrutinized for the way their house was. And they have another really nice house.
Yeah, and I also remember, too, that their home study writer was concerned because they had also experienced fertility issues, and so their writer was concerned that they were in foster care for the wrong reasons, which to me was really sad because they did eventually end up becoming approved, and they had a biological child as well, and they're really good parents to both of them.
I want to go back real quick, and something that surprised me, or like when we talk about the PATH classes and the foster parenting classes, Where we live, they're called PATH classes, and that's Parents as Tender Healers, I think is what it stands for. So our friends that we were just speaking of have, one of them is a police officer, and the other one has a doctorate in nursing. And I always thought, that it was really, really odd. The state is just so set on their ways. They made them take the CPR and first aid classes.
Yeah, that's right.
Even though one of them, Sarah teaches that class, which was crazy. Even the gal that taught our class was like, "Yeah, I'm actually in the process of being a foster parent too." And even though I teach, even though I teach the class, they're making me take it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I guess it's just government. I guess it's just, I don't know, bureaucracy. That's just the way government is. A lot of the stuff just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, no exceptions. Well, we passed our home study. They ended up getting all of our PATH paperwork and our home study stuff together and shipping it off to DCS. So in Nashville, where we are, you can choose to either become a foster parent through an agency or directly through DCS. Now, I know it doesn't work that way in every other state. Like, for example, in Texas, where my brother lives, you have to be affiliated with an agency. You can't go directly through DCS. But here, we chose to go directly through DCS as opposed to an agency. Our home study paperwork and our PATH paperwork sat on someone's desk at DCS for how long? Until April.
Yeah, so we were done with PATH, like I said, the week of my birthday. So the second week of August. Mm-hmm. And they're like, oh, yeah, by the end of the year, you'll be approved. We waited and waited and waited, and we're like, well, did we not get chosen or what?
They denied us.
Yeah, did they deny us?
Yeah, we didn't hear much of anything. From what I remember, we just kind of waited around until...
And then...
April 11th, 2018.
My phone rang.
Well, my phone rang first. It was just after my work hours. Joel was still at work. And no, you know what? I take that back. We got a call before April 11th for a teenager, remember?
No.
Maybe we didn't.
No, we didn't. We got April 11th because they're like, can you take this 6-week-old baby? And we're like, well, we're not even approved yet. And they're like, oh, no, you were approved yesterday.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks for telling us.
Yeah. That was such an emotional day because both of us were in a situation that we had never been in before and we didn't really know what to expect. We didn't even have a car seat.
And then I went to get the car seat on the way to DCS.
Yep. And I went straight to DCS and we met each other there. So the thing that I remember
of course,
about...
I got the wrong car seat.
Yeah, you got a car seat for toddlers instead of an infant car seat. But that's fine. I mean, now you know more about car seats than probably any other man I know. But the thing I remember about that day is walking into the building and I saw the DCS employee holding her and I walked in and I was like, oh my goodness, she is so cute. What's her name? And the DCS worker looked at me and she was like, I don't know. Do you want me to look? Yeah. And I'm like, yes, please look.
Yeah, and everybody butchered her name everybody pronounced it different.
Yeah, her name was not spelled in the traditional sense of how it was pronounced. It wasn't really a non-traditional, like it was a pretty common name, but it was just spelled differently than you would expect. And so nobody really knew how to say it. I mean, we didn't really even know how to say it until the first CFTM meeting a few weeks later.
Yeah, and nobody knew the correct birth date.
Yeah, that
seems to be a common theme too.
Yeah, I feel like several of our foster children have gotten their birthdays wrong on the paperwork.
Yeah.
We brought her home. She was crying and screaming, and we had no idea what to do.
Oh, that was awful.
It was awful. And then we realized that generally if you fed her, she would stop crying and screaming.
Yeah. And I remember laying in bed with her between my legs. Like, I was sitting up in bed, and you went to Walmart.
To get a car seat.
To get everything we could possibly need for a minion.
Yeah, we needed clothes. I think we had a crib, but we needed clothes, diapers, formula, all of that stuff. A stroller. I bought all that night.
Yeah.
Oh, and do you remember when we walked in the door too? We had a security system in our house that we did not use.
So we had been in that house for over a year. So we moved in like August 25th of 16.
16.
And we got her in
18.
April of 17.
No, it was 18 because we were married in 18.
Oh yeah.
Anyways,
we had never ever used the security system. We thought it was disarmed. 5 minutes after we walked in the front door, the alarm went off, and it went off for.
It was going nuts.
It went off for probably an hour, and it was the most ear-piercing thing. I ended up crawling in the closet and disconnecting the power source.
Yeah, that was so weird, the timing of that.
It was awful.
But we survived, and over the next several months, we really, really connected with this little girl, and she basically she was a part of our family. We loved her. We loved her so much.
Still do.
Yeah, still do. And so we were just kind of living our life, doing our thing.
Had a good routine going.
Yeah, we got into a routine. You know, the night thing I think was hard for us to get used to just because we had never parented an infant before. And all of a sudden, we're waking up multiple times in the middle of the night and still going to work. You know, neither of us got like a paternity or maternity leave.
Yeah, and most people have 9 months to prepare for this kind of life event.
Yeah, we got 20 minutes.
Yeah, the time it took us to get from work to DCS on the other side of downtown.
Yeah, but we made it work. Then we had our wedding scheduled for September 1st of that year.
It was 2 weeks after. Yeah, 2 weeks after my birthday.
Yeah. So Joel's birthday comes along the middle of August that following year.
And so they know, DCS had led us to believe that there was a very strong chance, based on the family's circumstances, that we would have an opportunity to adopt this little girl. We really connected, and we really had a bond with her.
I distinctly remember our foster parent support worker coming over and saying, "Oh, you have an infant? All infants get adopted. They rarely go back to live with their biological families," which was weird for me because the entire time in training, we were told reunification is number one. The goal is to get them back with their biological families. Children do better when they're with their biological families. And so it was weird to hear our support worker saying that.
I don't think that the worker was like saying ultimately it wasn't going to happen. But that was just this particular case, I think.
Maybe.
So anyway.
We are just living our lives, doing our thing, and Joel's birthday rolls around in August. I got a call from the baby's caseworker, her caseworker, not ours, saying that there had been a court hearing that morning and custody had been released to Grandma. So leaving our house that day. And it was that quick, that unexpected. We didn't even know that court had happened. Nobody invited us. Nobody told us about it. We had no clue.
Yeah, so actually I took that call.
No, I did.
No, you didn't. I did because I called you from work.
That's right. Yeah, she called me and I couldn't answer because I was in an interview. And then you called me freaking out.
So we went home, or we went and picked her up from daycare and went home and basically just sat and looked at her and watched her and cried.
Mm-hmm. Spent time with her.
The whole day.
Got her things together, and her caseworker came and picked her up. And it was a really, really sad day.
Yeah.
On top of how emotional that day was for us, and on top of the fact that it was Joel's birthday, we were getting married in 2 to 3 weeks.
It's 2 weeks, yeah.
And she was the flower girl in our wedding. We had her dress picked out. We had the programs. She was traveling with us. We were getting married out of state. We, had it all ready to go for her to be the flower girl. And so we told her caseworker that, and her caseworker agreed to ask Grandma if we could still take her. And Grandma agreed.
Yeah. Sounds like from what they told us, she was very reluctant for quite a while, but our worker really went to bat with her and the family for us to get to take her.
Yeah, and I think both of us really enjoyed her caseworker. She was always really good to us, and she kept us in the loop, kept us informed, and I really enjoyed having her for a caseworker for our foster children.
Yeah, she was probably the best one we've had.
Yeah. Then you decided to marry me.
Mm-hmm. Best decision I ever made, Mommy.
Aw, that's so sweet. You kind of sound sarcastic.
No.
Aw. We picked up our foster daughter before we flew out, and our flight got delayed a day. So she stayed overnight.
That's right.
Yeah, she stayed overnight at our house here in Tennessee one night before we flew out to South Dakota.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
And she had been to South Dakota with us one time prior to that. And so by that time, she was kind of an expert traveler.
Yeah, because we got stranded there one other time. Remember? In that little tiny hotel that was attached to the airport.
Yeah, that's right. Weather in South Dakota.
I think, weather between South Dakota and Chicago where our connecting flight was.
That's right. Yeah, so she was an expert traveler by the time we picked her up for our wedding, and that was awkward picking her up. I mean, I had a kind of a long conversation with her grandma that day, and I feel like I got to a place with her where she started to trust me, because if a stranger is taking my infant out of state, it's going to have me a little bit worried. So I do commend her for being courageous and being so kind to let her. I feel like it was really bittersweet because we were so happy to have her there and so grateful to be able to spend time with her. But we knew.
And all of our family a lot of our family really got attached to her.
Yeah, and so they all got to see her again, too.
They all got to say goodbye to her, kind of. And
yeah, it was so sad knowing when we got back to Tennessee, we were going to have to bring her back to her grandma for good.
And we had a lot of life events in that 6 months? In that 6 months that
we had a lot going on. We really did. We'll have to have a separate episode just for the things that happened to us in that 6 months, because it was definitely... It was a lot. We had a lot going on and we were overwhelmed, but I feel like we have really been able to pride ourselves on the fact that during that really tough time, we really stuck together and we were a good team. Yeah,
there's a lot of people, I think, that a lot of relationships that couldn't have withstood we had some really hard stuff that happened. And I think there's a lot of couples that couldn't deal with that.
Yeah, I agree. And we ended up getting married. We made it official.
Who's Facebook official?
I changed my name. Now my last name is Ellis, which is much easier to say and spell than Geierman, so I'm pretty excited about that. Well, regarding foster care and adoption, what happened next? We kind of got a little bit of a break. Well, let's talk about the very short-term foster placement we had when we also had our foster daughter.
Yeah, we had a 16-year-old young lady that stayed with us for just the weekend, 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, it was just a weekend. She was headed to permanently stay with some folks that she considered to be like her grandmother and grandfather, not biologically, but some...
They were over-the-road truckers.
Yeah.
And they were retiring.
Mm-hmm. And they wanted to take her permanently. And
so that's what that's all she was waiting on at that point.
This was just like a transition between here and there. And I really enjoyed having her. She was a big help with the baby.
She was super helpful.
Yeah, she was a sweet girl. I ended up taking her to a friend was having a pool party, a birthday party for her niece. And so we all ended up going to that. What I remember about having her, our 16-year-old, was we went through the drive-thru at Dairy Queen, and we were just going to grab some ice cream quick before we hit this pool party. And she was on the phone with this grandmother figure, but she didn't have a cell phone. She just had...
talked in her watch.
Yeah, it was like an Apple Watch, kind of. It wasn't an Apple Watch.
It was a Samsung watch, yeah. I remember that.
And so because of that, it had to be on speakerphone. Like, I had to hear it. We were in the car, so she didn't really have any privacy. And she told our grandmother that we were going through the drive-thru and getting ice cream and that we were going to a pool party. And her grandmother just said, "Wow, I'm really glad you're finally in a home where they're treating you well." And that broke my heart because I didn't feel like we were really doing anything special. I mean, we were just grabbing some ice cream.
We're just living our everyday lives.
Yeah. Like, of course we were going to get her ice cream, and if I'm going to a pool party, of course I'm going to take my foster kids with me. And it just broke my heart that was out of the ordinary for her. Mm-hmm. So she ended up leaving us after just a couple of days, and we stayed in contact a little bit for a while, but I haven't talked to her recently. She was a sweet girl. And then we had a bit of a lull for several months where we did stay in contact with grandma of our foster daughter infant, kind of on and off, just checking in, seeing how she was doing. Do you remember it was Christmas Eve? we were about to sign a contract to build a new house.
Yeah. Your mom and Tom were here?
Yep. They were in town, and I get a message from Grandma. What did it say?
I don't want to use her name. Mom.
The mother
of our first foster daughter that we fell in love with was supposedly pregnant again, and they didn't know what was going to happen. But in the meantime, she had flown the coop and moved to New Hampshire.
She was living in New Hampshire and found out that she was pregnant. And her mother, the grandma, I think was a little bit worried about her at that point because I think she was hanging out with people that the grandma didn't, necessarily trust would take care of her. Everything kind of stayed chill for a while until February of 2019 when Grandma called kind of frantic, and she said that her daughter, Mom,
was in an abusive relationship.
Yes, she was in an abusive relationship, still living in New Hampshire, and she desperately wanted to get back to Nashville, but
she didn't have the money to get back here.
Yes, and Grandma asked if we'd be willing to buy her bus ticket, and she also wanted to consider letting us adopt her unborn baby. And I think our mindset at that point, at least mine, was... we just
got to help this girl, regardless of whether or not we ever got to adopt a child. If something would have happened to her and we didn't help her get back,
we could never forgive ourselves. Yeah. And at the same time, I mean, she was the mother of this foster daughter who we loved so much. We ended up buying her a Greyhound bus ticket, and we sent the Greyhound ticket to the station that was closest to her, and sure enough, she got on the bus and ended up coming back. I don't think we really...
So after Mom was back in Tennessee, it was probably a month, probably 45 days. We hadn't talked to him, and randomly, Grandma reaches out to us and says, hey, are you still interested in, possibly adopting Mom's unborn child? And we're like, well, yeah, sure,
I don't think
not fully believing,
Yeah, neither of us really believed it was actually going to happen. I think we were skeptically hopeful.
Yeah, skeptically hopeful. Grandma said, hey, you should go and meet Mom for lunch at the mall. And so we did, and we had a really good conversation with her. But at that point...
and this was the first time we had ever met her.
Yeah. And at this point, we're like, she doesn't look pregnant.
Yeah. She was nice to talk to, though. She was, really positive, happy, upbeat, smiley. I mean, she was a very pleasant person to be around. The fact that she wanted us to adopt her baby was pretty apparent at that point. I remember her saying, this is your baby.
Yeah, but at the same time, we still didn't believe her.
I don't know that we didn't believe her.
Very skeptical. So, fast forward to March. No. May. It was May because it was a week of my brother's birthday. Grandma called again and said, hey, as we progress here, I think it would be smart if you guys and Mom met again to, just kind of solidify or, go over
spend more time together.
Yeah. And we're like, okay, well, we haven't talked to this person at all in forever, and how do we know this is real? Girl wants to go to McDonald's. So we took her to McDonald's.
Back up.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
Prior to that, we actually ended up getting another call from placement. They were wanting to place us with two girls.
A 5-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yes. And for whatever reason, we just believed in our hearts at the time that was the right decision for us, and we said yes. When we said yes, your parents were in
here.
Town.
Yeah.
And we went and picked them up. It was the middle of the night. I remember sitting in the DCS office in my glasses, which I never wear my glasses in public. Never. No makeup. And I think the reason I remember
with the little one on your lap, I remember it. I've got a picture of it.
That's why I remember it so vividly, is because that picture, and I just look like I'm so tired.
That little girl looked so content sitting on your lap.
Yeah, which says a lot because she had just kind of been pulled out of her mother's arms, and she was...
trusting you.
Yeah, she was trusting us, and they were timid the little one was timid at first.
So I think we should stop there with, we can tell the story of those girls down the line, but we're kind of in the middle of the mom grandma adoption thing.
Oh no, I think we should go chronologically. It's like a movie with multiple storylines.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
It's keeping them on edge for what's to happen next with pregnant
It's making
mom.
people pay attention.
Yeah.
So we have these two little girls, and they're a handful.
They are a handful, for sure. It was tough. It was really tough with them. I think the older one, she was 5. She was just so smart for her age. She had seen so much. She had heard so much. And through that, I think through that trauma, she had kind of learned to manipulate adults and throw tantrums. And
at 5 years old.
Yeah, she was just such a smart little girl, but very difficult for us to parent, especially because we had never parented children.
A child that could talk.
Yeah, children those ages.
Or talk back.
But also, we got into a little bit of a routine.
Do you remember what the first... When we were driving home, I remember going over the James Robertson Bridge. Do you remember what she was talking about? The first, real conversation she tried to have with us was asking us if we had ever seen these horror movies, asking if we knew about Michael Myers and Friday the 13th and Freddy Krueger. And
yeah.
We're like, how does a 5-year-old know this?
Yeah, she had just seen too much. She had heard too much. It was quite sad. But I think with them, we kind of ended up getting into a little bit of a routine too. Things were kind of getting easier in a way until we learned that the possibility of us adopting had started to become more real.
Yeah. And Mom, when we went to McDonald's, we saw how she interacted with these two little girls that we had. And, I mean, she was very engaged with them.
Yeah, she was great with them.
But, so we're sitting there at McDonald's, and the girls were, the little girls, the 5-year-old and the 2-year-old were playing in the ball pit or whatever it was. And I'm still skeptical. And Mom was like, well, I was in the hospital this morning with contractions. And I'm still, at this point, sitting there thinking, yeah, whatever. I don't, She still doesn't look that pregnant. Flash before my eyes, she pulls out a ultrasound picture, and it's got her name, that day's date. I think, if I remember right, it was May 20th. And it has 2 pictures of a little baby.
A little peanut.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she gave it to us.
Yeah, and she's like, here's your child. And I was like, holy cow.
Yeah, she gave us the ultrasound and told us we could keep it. Yeah,
that's when it really started to feel like,
yeah,
this is something, like this is really happening.
Yeah, it could be really happening for sure. And we didn't see her again after that. The 2 little girls ended up leaving our house shortly after. The next thing I remember,
it was a good thing that it worked out that way, because the next thing I remember is
sitting in the hot tub.
And we had talked about some different names after the reality of this adoption came to fruition. We had talked about a few names, and we had it narrowed down to a few.
Yeah, we were like, if this is actually a thing,
we
need to be prepared with a name, because I think that's sort of a requirement.
Yeah, so we actually settled on a name one night sitting in our hot tub. A couple nights after we had met with Mom, and we're sitting there and we're like, yeah, that's the name. We cheersed.
Yeah, we each had a drink in our hand, did a little cheers, and said, all right, that's it. Do you want to tell him what the name is?
Brooks Frederick.
Yeah.
And I don't know where Brooks came from. It was the name that you and I both liked. And
it was basically the only name we both liked.
Yeah, and then your mom randomly was like, how about Brooks?
Yeah. Then I kind of knew it was meant to be.
And his middle name is Frederick, after Alex's dad,
who we lost that year.
Yep.
In February of 2019.
That'll be part of our other story.
Yep.
Of all the things that happened, I guess, so to speak.
Yep.
So we cheers to it that night, and we went to bed, and we were in bed at 9:00, and had just fallen asleep, and Alex's iPhone tells who's calling. So it's like, da-da-da-da-da, and tells who it is. And Alex rolls over. She's like, should I answer it? And we'd both just fallen asleep. I was like, yeah, you might as well. And so she answers it and was like, hey, it's Grandma. Mom is in labor at Skyline Hospital. I can't get off.
There?
Yeah, because she works overnights. Mm-hmm. She's like, I can't get off of work, otherwise they're going to fire me. Can you get there and be there for her when this child's born? So
keep in mind, we were under the impression that the baby was due
in August.
Yeah, like mid to late August. This was June 11th.
June 11th, yeah.
And so it was super early. I was sure what was going to happen is we were going to get all dressed, go down to the hospital. They were going to give her something to stop her contractions. I don't know how pregnancy works. I don't know how contractions work, but I don't know, give her a little pill or something and send her home. And we were going to drive her home, and then we were going to go back home and go to bed. I was absolutely
because she'd already
positive
had the contraction.
That same thing had happened. Yeah, I was absolutely positive that's what was going to happen. And, I was willing to do it, but I was like just a little bit annoyed.
Cautiously, we were cautious.
Yeah, we were cautious. So we get down to the hospital. And so this hospital does not have a labor and delivery unit at all.
No, it's a level 1 trauma center here in Nashville. There's 2. This is one of them, but
they don't deliver babies.
They don't deliver babies there. So we walk in to the emergency room because it's what was it, 10:45 at night?
Yeah, it was
by the
later.
time we got there. Yeah. And this nurse walks up to us as soon as we walk in the door, and she looks at us. She's like, "Are you Mom and Dad?"
We both looked at each other like, And she said, "He's here. He's been born. He's healthy. Mom's healthy. Everybody's good. He's little, but he's healthy." And then she escorted us to this little waiting room, and I felt like I was in a dream.
Yeah. We sat there for...
It felt like forever.
It felt like forever, but it was probably only between 5 and 10 minutes.
Yeah, it wasn't a long time, but it felt like forever. And while we're sitting in this little room, they played the nursery song that hospitals play when a baby is born, which is crazy to me that they actually had the capability of playing that over the loudspeakers.
When they don't have labor and delivery.
Yeah, and I just remember looking over at you, Joel, and being like, are they playing that for him? Like, is that for Brooks? It had to have been because they don't deliver babies.
Yeah.
So they took us back to her section of the emergency room, and we got to see him for the first time, and he was so cute and little. He just looked like a little peanut alien.
He was 4 pounds and
0.6 ounces.
Yeah. So we had to hang out there for we actually took some pictures with Mom and us, and
she got to hold him.
Yeah, she got to hold him. And then...
also, I was really proud of her. She was a trooper because she did not have an epidural.
Yeah. So we sat there, and they brought in 2 ambulances, one for him and one for her. And they took them both by ambulance to Centennial Hospital downtown, where the sister hospital where they actually do labor and delivery and have NICU and all that.
And he was in the NICU for, I want to say, 5.5 weeks.
It was
5.5 weeks.
Yeah, I was thinking it was like 41 days or something like that.
I don't know.
Could be, I don't know. It was a long time, and we both went there multiple times a day, and it was long.
Yeah, we were still working every day, and so we would visit him either before work, during lunch, after work, weekends.
We had a routine.
Yeah, we had our little routine, and we would visit him all the time and hold him and feed him. And starting off, he was under the jaundice light.
Yeah, for
a while.
4 days, 5 days.
Mm-hmm. And he had a feeding tube. He had the nasal cannula. The first few days, he had IVs in his little hands. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That was so sad, and we couldn't hold him.
Because they had the sticks taped to his arms, and
yeah, we couldn't hold him for several days. And then finally, we were able to hold him, and he was just so cute and little.
Yeah.
And then it came the day where he was ready to be released.
Yeah, he was still tiny.
He was so little, and he was just the cutest little peanut. So when he was released from the hospital, I took a bunch of time off work. So I would work, I think I worked Mondays and Tuesdays. I worked from home. I think I worked...
You did...
I worked Mondays and Tuesdays and then worked from home. No. I took off Mondays and Tuesdays and worked from home Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
For several weeks until we were able to get him into daycare.
Neither of us had rights, really.
Yeah, neither of us had maternity leave or paternity leave at our jobs, which interestingly enough has changed since then, because just like a week or two ago, my office rolled out a new policy where you can get 12 weeks paid maternity or paternity leave for the placement of an adoptive child or a foster child.
Yeah. Which
would have been nice at the time.
You had to use FMLA, so you didn't even get paid.
Right.
So, yeah, but it was cool that they noted that you were kind of the one that inspired it, so.
Yeah, that was really cool. Yeah, that's really nice. At this point, Brooks was home.
Yeah.
We had him home for several months, and we took a little bit of a break from foster care. I think
it wasn't that we took a break. They just didn't call. I mean, they called us like 2 or 3 times for placements that we just weren't equipped to handle.
Right. Yeah, they did. They just didn't really call with any placements that we were ready for until mid-December.
December 17th.
Well, it was before that they called us.
Yeah.
A couple days before that.
The 14th.
They called and said that they had an infant in the hospital and they were looking for foster parents. Are you interested? And we said, well, yeah, tell us more.
Yeah, the same NICU that Brooks was in.
Yeah, same NICU. We said, yeah, we're interested. Tell us more. Give us more info when you have it. And they would say, okay, we'll call you right back. Well, we would wait by our phones and they never called. This happened 2 or 3 times.
Then that was on a Friday, and then Sunday we were test driving car.
Oh yeah, I wanted a new car bad.
And they called again, and I said, yeah. Well, they said, Mr. Ellis, we understand that you're taking a newborn for us. And I said, well, we'd been talking. They'd reached out to us about it, but they couldn't provide us with the information. So I don't know. We don't know. What can you tell us about? Well, this isn't my case. This is so-and-so's case. I'll have to get back to you with the particulars that you're looking for. So we left the car dealership fully intending to go to the hospital that night to pick up this child.
And they never called us.
They didn't call us. So that was on a Saturday. So Sunday, we just hung out and did our thing. Monday, we went to work like nothing ever happened, and I got one of those G-chats at a little after 9 when Mommy...
On Tuesday.
it was on Monday. When Mommy knew that I was at work and said, hey, I'm going to go feed this child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in order for them to release a child from the NICU, typically you have to do a night stay where you stay overnight with the baby and they make sure you know what you're doing. And we did that with Brooks. But because we had a history with this hospital, and especially because Brooks had the exact same medical issues that this child has,
they gave us a hall pass.
Yeah, they gave us a pass, and they were just like, no, just come show us that you can feed her twice, and then we'll release her to you, which is really cool. I mean, I think it was the right decision because we had spent weeks and weeks at that same hospital, and they all knew who we were, and so it was nice that we didn't have to do another overnight stay, but they released her to us, and we have had her since December 17th.
Mm-hmm.
And she was born at the beginning of December. And I'll tell you what.
December 2nd.
2 babies, 2 infants is hard. It has tested us for sure.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing is not getting any sleep. I feel like if we both...
We don't even sleep in the same room anymore.
Yeah, we've tested a few different ways of what's most efficient and how we can each get the biggest block of sleep, but I don't think we've really gotten it figured out. What's your favorite part about having 2 infants?
My favorite part?
Yeah. Do you have a favorite part?
That's a good question.
My favorite part is like watching them interact, which they don't interact a whole lot because they're both still so young. Our little foster daughter is a month and a half old, and then Brooks just turned 7 months old, and so they're still like pretty young, don't really like do a whole lot of interacting. But the other day you sent me a video and Brooks was like petting her.
Yeah, he was like trying to scratch her face.
Well, not in an evil way, though. He was like just cutely
like touch,
petting her.
like touch. He's too young. He doesn't know what.
It was very cute.
Yeah.
I also love the stage that he's at right now because he is so smiley and it's so easy to make him giggle. And I just love that stage. It's so cute.
And he likes to snuggle with his mommy.
Yeah, he loves snuggling.
He doesn't like to snuggle with me.
He'll only snuggle with me when he's really tired, like right when he wakes up in the mornings. That's our snuggle time.
And he's super smiley in the morning, too.
Yeah.
Like, you go and wake him up in his crib, and he's very smiley.
I just love his little face. He's so cute. And our little foster daughter, she's so cute, too. This is different for us because this is the first time that I had ever seen a foster parent in Davidson County or even, like, in the surrounding area where they were placed with a child outside of their race. I didn't realize that they did that, and I wonder if that's maybe part of the reason why it took them so long to call us back. Part of me thinks that they were trying to find a foster family that's the same race as she is. She's black. So I don't know, and we obviously have no opposition to taking a foster child of any race, but it was just interesting to me because it was the first time I'd ever seen that happen.
Mm-hmm.
And she's also super cute. She kind of looks like a little old woman, but she
sounds like one too.
She sounds like an old woman when she cries, and she has like all of this hair. She has so much hair.
Yeah. And what's funny about the old woman aspect is that our daycare provider said the exact same thing, even without us saying that she looked like an old woman and sounded like an old woman.
Yeah, it's definitely the consensus.
Same. Yeah, which I just thought that was pretty cool. Well, pretty funny, really.
Yeah. And that brings us to where we are today. We will finalize the adoption for Brooks in February.
In like how many days? What is it today?
Not very many days.
Yeah.
And that will be super exciting.
17 days.
We still don't know what's going to happen with the foster daughter we have now, but I guess we'll give an update when we're able to.
And I'm sure we've missed a whole lot of stories.
Oh, yeah. We could dive deep on really any of those topics and kind of take a closer look at.
Do you think people are disappointed that we didn't get any sticky stuff in this episode?
Oh, I will tell you right now, I am covered in baby spit up. I had both kids all day today.
I've been looking at your sweatshirt the whole time, and on the right side, it's crusty and yellow.
That's actually...
And on your pants, it's crusty and yellow.
That's actually not spit up or formula. That's peaches from Brooks' dinner tonight. Those are peaches. And I didn't even notice, so thank you for telling me that. And it's cool because I've been in my pajamas all day because we haven't left the house. But if I'm ever about to walk out of the house and
I'll tell you.
Okay, please do.
Yeah.
Because that's like one of my biggest fears. And like 9 times out of 10, I feel like I have baby spit up in my hair, like at the ends, and I just don't notice it. And so I'd really need to know.
You're a very put together mommy. I will tell you.
Well, thanks for saying that, but I don't feel put together. I feel fallen apart.
No, you find it, you feel it very important to look good, feel good when you're out and about. And
I do. If I'm going to work, I like to make sure that I have my makeup on and my hair fixed and stuff. Yep. Well, I think that might be enough for the day. We're sitting at over an hour, so...
Yeah, those kids have been in bed for 2 hours now. Literally 2 hours, so...
Yeah, it's 9:05. It's 5 minutes past our bedtime.
It's an hour and 5 minutes past my bedtime.
All right. Well, Joel, thank you for being my very first podcast guest ever.
You're welcome.
This is a big deal.
Yeah, maybe I'll get invited back.
maybe
if you get more than 1 subscriber or 2 subscribers, I'll get a return opportunity. So subscribe to the podcast, and in the comments, make sure that you invite Joel back. Make sure you request that I come back.
All right, deal. And the best way actually to support this podcast too will be...
Money? You're asking for money already?
No, I'm not asking for money, and I won't ask for money.
No.
I will ask that if you're listening to this podcast and you're enjoying it, the best way to help spread the word is to leave a 5-star review, because that's how we will build our community and build connections. And that's really all I hope to do here. But really, this was very therapeutic for me. I was hoping that by talking about our situation and our story, it would feel therapeutic, and I think it has.
Yeah.
All right.
Let's go, night-night.
Meow.